Hello friends, and welcome to the Hanged Man in the Moon. If this is your first time here, welcome. Thank you for coming. I'm pleased to meet you. If you've been here before, thank you for returning. I'm truly honored. And friends, if you are a returning visitor, you might be wondering if your sound is weird or strange because my voice sounds different. Well, friends, I've either got allergies or a cold, and I'm guessing it's probably allergies, but my voice is unusual, to say the least, right? So we're going to see how well this goes. I might have to stop a couple of times to go get something to drink because of what's happening here in my nasal passages in my throat, but we're going to go through, we're going to keep going ahead because that's what this whole coming Decan is about. Now, friends, what are we here to do? We're on the third video, well, fourth if you consider the announcement, of a different kind of Decan Walk series on my channel. Yes, a different kind of Decan Walk. And why am I calling it that? It's because I am using different associations, different esoteric information when associating astrology, Kabbalah to the Tarot. Different from the Golden Dawn. So, if you go to most other channels, most other sources, you're going to see different information. And that's why I'm calling mine a different kind of Decan Walk. Because it's different than the more common Golden Dawn based Decan Walks that are out there. Now, I'm not saying that the Golden Dawn system is bad or wrong. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful system. And there are wonderful teachers of that system, including people like T. Susan Chang, who has produced books and wonderful information about that. And it's lovely. But for me, it is not 100% satisfying. And so I have gone to sources before the Golden Dawn and with the help of teachers such as Christine Payne-Towler, reorganized the information that we are using for this Decan Walk to ideas and ways of approaching it predating the Golden Dawn. Now, I'm not saying it's thousands of years old or even hundreds of years old. Well, a couple hundred years old, maybe, but still, I'm not saying it goes back to the beginning of Tarot or the beginning of time either. But it is before the Golden Dawn. Yes, and there were writers before the Golden Dawn who thought about this kind of stuff. So I'm using all of that stuff and sources before even Tarot to inform my system, inform the way I am associating things. God, I hope that makes sense. If it does not, I've got a whole series on what I'm doing with the associations in Tarot, so I will put a card up here if you want to take a look at the first video in that series. Go ahead. So, ladies and gentlemen, let me give you a brief outline of what we're going to do in this video. Yes, there are going to be maybe 4 parts. Yes, first part, I'm going to do a recap of the previous Decan, my experiences, and I have a community tab, is that what we call it, open on my channel. So if you want to, and I highly encourage you and would be joyful if you do, post your experiences of the previous Decan or the one before that, so that we can share, we can see how our experiences might be the same or different, and how those similarities and differences can inform our growing understanding of how astrology and the Kabbalah is associated with the Tarot. Yes? So please participate in that. I'm going to do the same. I should be giving you an outline, but I'm going tangential here for a moment. One thing I've already recently posted on that community tab is my list of decks that I am going to be using for the rest of this Decan Walk. I've broken them down by astrological sign, and I invite you to look at it and give me suggestions. I'm open to changes. There were a couple of slots that actually I might have felt a little bit, well, this is the best I can come up with so far. But if you have better ideas or different ideas, I'd love to hear from you. I'm not saying I'm going to accept every idea out there, but I'd be curious, and maybe you will help inform this process for all of us. So, please go take a look at that. Now, back to the outline. I'm going to start off with the recap for the previous 10 days. I'm going to then show you an oracle card, and the reason I'm showing you an oracle card is because the creator of that deck, it's an astrological oracle deck that places each planet in each of the signs. And I've come to discover that her write-ups, the write-ups in the guidebook for that deck, give a really nice summary of other information that I have gone and researched. So her stuff is really concise, and I'm referring to hers and then double-checking with other sources. So I'll show you that oracle card for this decan and what it means to have this planet in this sign. And then we'll look at the decan card itself. That's part 2. And then we're going to, in part 3, look at how the Tree of Life and Kabbalah inform that one card for this decan. And if you've seen the first 2 videos, you know what I'm talking about. If you have not, follow along. And then I am going to pull 3 questions out from those 3 cards and create a spread. And then I have laid out a spread for those 3 questions, a very positional spread, and we'll read those 3 cards in part 4. Okay? So, my suggestion for anyone watching this video is that you don't have to watch every part of the video if you don't want to. Yes? If just watching the one card for the decan is enough for you and you think, okay, I'm out of here, that's fine. If you want to move directly on to the Kabbalistic associations, do that. That's great. Yeah? If you want to just look at that spread at the end because you're curious, that's great. Your choice. I've got all of this information for you to pick and choose from, and you can, if you want, of course, watch it from beginning to end. And I will try to have timestamps in the description box below to help you navigate this video. Okay? So that's what I'm doing. Are you ready to begin? Well, if you are, first let me say thank you. Thank you for doing all of those things that you do. Thank you for hitting the thumbs up button. Thank you for subscribing to this channel. Our community is growing and has been growing steadily for years, and it's all because of you. So thank you. And thank you for all of you who comment in the comment section. All of those actions help other people find us. And thank you for commenting in the community section or posting in the community section as well. Activity helps the channel, helps us understand each other, and helps us grow, I think. So, thank you. Okay, friends, let's start with the recap. So, the last decan was the second decan of Aries, which is keyed to Leo, which means we had the sun in Aries, from which we had fixed fires, vital attributes, and from which we had the fixed aspect of cardinal fires, vital attributes entering our world. So we had this leonine quality, this solar leonine quality of the Martian Aries zodiacal sign. Yes? And we had ideas of standing up and being seen, having the ability to start carrying out plans that we start. Yes? Maybe even being interested in getting in and fixing problems that we've already created and enjoying fixing those problems. So, what have I noticed in the world? Well, Let's go with the pretty first, yeah? Let's talk flowers. The last decan, the first decan, I said that the flowers were just starting to bloom. Well, in this decan, I've noticed that more flowers are starting to bloom. Yes, not only are the forsythia and the magnolias in full bloom, but also the cherry blossoms have blossomed and other flowers have blossomed, some things that I don't know the names of. Yeah, so we've got a much broader array of floral expression. And then today, as I was riding to school, as I was riding my bicycle here to school, in what you might call a floral no man's land, yeah, the large space out on the side of the bicycle path that had no flowers, grass, other stuff, but no flowers, there was this one single yellow daffodil growing up. And I thought, oh wow, this yellow daffodil reminds me of the sun in Aries. Yeah, here we are in Aries, and this yellow daffodil made me think of the sun here in Aries, right? So I was riding my bicycle along and I was thinking, oh wow, that's like the sun in Aries. And then as I was nearing the end of my ride, what did I happen to stumble upon but two groupings, separate but very close groupings of daffodils, yellow. And each grouping had at least 12 daffodils each. And then I thought, oh, law of attraction, right? I had my mind on yellow daffodils and suddenly, boom, I had a plethora. Yeah? So, all of that stuff reminding me of the sun in Aries. Something more on the world stage. The No Kings rallies happened during this decan. Yes, they happened at the very beginning of this decan, which reminded me of the Two of Wands and of the Sun in Aries. Why? Well, you might be thinking to yourself, well, no, that should be the Three of Wands, right? Okay, so if you are in the Golden Dawn system, I can see why you're thinking all of those things. But why is it for me very clearly a Two of Wands, Sun in Aries event? One thing that comes to mind is that okay, so you might disagree with me, but this kind of protest is not the same as what we would think of as a Three of Wands, or for me, Sagittarius in Aries kind of action, where we're actually moving forward with actions to teach, to rectify, to solve, to be more active in the world. Yes? Now, you might be saying, well, all of these people came out. Yes, they did. But what did we do? What did we do? We were standing up, showing our faces and saying no. Right? Mars in Aries is, I've got this inspiration. I've got to do something. Right? The Two with the Sun is standing up and, hey, look at me. Things have to happen. We haven't actually started really doing the things, but we are being visible, which is more the Sun in Aries than, for me, Jupiter in Aries or Saturn in Aries. Does that make sense? Everyone was standing up and saying, hey, look at me, look at what I have to say, look at what I am against. Look at me expressing myself. A very leonine thing to do, to me, which means Two of Wands. Does that make sense to you? And there's also, I think, a little bit of the we made the problem to enjoy fixing it quality of, I'm sorry, whether we're Democrat, Republican, or in another country outside of the United States, Trump is on us. President Trump is on us. We, whether we voted for him or not, are responsible for who was selected as President of the United States. And in the broader sense, the global situation is also responsible for this person coming to power at this time, in this place, in this country. Whether you're for him or against him, we're all responsible. Now, we're not responsible in the sense of bad person, you did a bad thing, but we are all responsible because this whole experience here in this universe is a co-creation. So we have all participated in this situation, and we get to choose how we're going to respond to what we have created. And maybe we can learn we can enjoy fixing this problem. Does that make sense? That sounds very Two of Wands. Now, we haven't actually done the fixing yet. We haven't moved on to direct action. But many of us have stood up and said, again, look at me. Do you get it? Okay, so another thing. My friend last night was talking about, he's on sabbatical from his job, lucky him, but he'd started getting itchy about not having to started doing something. He's got to write something big, yes, during his sabbatical year. And honestly, the sabbatical year has only just begun, so there is that. He's still got a whole year to complete this project, but he started getting itchy and he started doing it. Now, to me, the Two of Wands is that we have the impulse from the first decan. In the second decan, the energy ramps up. We start getting the idea of where we're going to go, right? But really, it's the next decan where things really take off, yes? But here, we're developing our stick-to-itiveness. We're developing our ability to continue forward with the work. Whereas the first decan, it's very random. There are many things we want to do. Second one was we were able to consolidate our focus and energy and fixed quality of this decan of this sign. And Sagittarius in the next decan is going to let us, boom, shoot our arrows, yes? So he started getting that itch and he succumbed to that, I gotta get started, and he got started. Now, was that the best time for him to get started? Things will reveal themselves in the near future, yeah? But there's that itch to get started that I think begins with the Sun in Leo, with this decan keyed to Leo in Aries, yes? Also, what? Ambulances today on my way to work. Yeah, the problems that we enjoy fixing, getting into accidents so that we can solve and heal the problem. I saw 2 ambulances, and I almost never see ambulances. Almost never. I might see one every 4 months, maybe. That would be a lot. Today, I saw 2. 2. One at the beginning of my long ride. I've got a 40-minute ride on my bicycle to get to school. One at the very beginning and one at the very end. Clearly going to different places, so different incidents, I think. So that reminded me of this Two of Wands thing of solving problems that we created for ourselves. And then the last thing, personally, is I have felt, now this might just be purely me. My sun is in Leo, and I have felt my Leonine ego more sensitive and wanting to be reactive in this period of this decan. Yeah? So there might be that. I don't know if you've experienced it for yourself, that your ego has felt a little bit more sensitive and easy to trigger. Have you noticed that? Have you noticed any of these things in your life in this last decan that we're passing through? And by the time this goes up onto the public YouTube sphere, you will have seen, will have walked through most all of this decan. Yes? Okay, so that was the recap. Very interesting. Now we're going to move on to the next decan. So, friends, I will show you the oracle card for the next decan first. And let's talk about just generally what that decan is before we look at the tarot card. Okay? Here is the oracle card for the next decan. Interesting card, right? Let me pull it up for myself. What you saw there on the card was kind of a palmistry image. Actually, I'll put the card up here. So it's here for, you can still see it. A palmistry image, right? So what you see is a card, it's a chiromancer's hand diagram. Now, people who read palms. And it shows the complex planetary qualities. Did you see those planet glyphs on the hand? So in palmistry, Jupiter, remember this decan is keyed to Sagittarius, which is ruled by Jupiter. So we've got Jupiter here in Aries. Yeah? Jupiter is for the achievement of enterprise and ambition. Full use of one's talents. Yeah? And there are acorns at the top. Do you see those acorns above the hand? 3 of them. Third decan of Aries. Okay, just something to throw out there. So for the creator of this deck, those acorns represent the seeds of potential. And remember, what Jupiter does, Jupiter takes those seeds of potential and bestows blessings on them like a fairy godmother. And they can sprout into beautiful oak trees. So what does this card have to do with this decan? So according to the author, we have a drive to improve life by taking on leadership positions. Now, Sagittarius likes to be a leader. Now, of course, Aries likes to be a leader too, but we're taking on larger roles, I think, here. And there's a need for positive action and enjoyment of physical activity. Yes? A Sagittarian here in Aries, this decan keyed to Sagittarius, might be a person who will rush in where angels fear to tread. Yeah? They'll go into the unknown and they won't be circumspect about what am I getting myself into? Is there going to be a problem? Is this all going to work out okay? What's up ahead? They're ready to move forward. But interestingly enough, this kind of activity, even though there could be danger ahead, ends up being of benefit for their overall well-being, because not moving forward will cause stress, and that stress will be damaging and degrading to their psychosomatic spiritual well-being. Yes? They are very impulsive, but Jupiter bestows luck on these impulsive people. Yes? And they're self-assured, and they shine, and they look trustworthy. And it makes them popular. Yeah, they have a lot of popularity. Their confidence rubs off on other people. Just being around them makes you feel more confident. And so that aura of positivity and playfulness and exploration infuses their environment, and other people absorb that energy and they feel it blossom within themselves. They're optimistic, and that optimistic belief that everything is going to work out, helps them. And oftentimes it actually does, because again, Jupiter. Now Jupiter's there. Okay, your wish is my command. Yes? They're bold and enterprising, and their approaches might be necessary in these circumstances. So they are not just doing things rashly in self-serving, for self-serving reasons. They're not doing things rashly to out of frustration or anger necessarily. They're doing things rashly because this is the time to be bold, to, as they said in Star Trek, to boldly go where no one has gone before, right? Okay, now I degendered that statement, but still, you know what I mean. That's Jupiter in Aries. Oh, I didn't even notice that there were 3 acorns at the bottom of the hand too, so total of 6. Okay, so now let's think about the Decan. Yeah, the Decan itself. Let me read from the book that I'm going to read from in every episode. Shouldn't call it an episode. These aren't episodes in every video. So, one short paragraph about the 3rd Decan of Aries. Yes? Keyed to Sagittarius. The impulsive Aries nature is tempered with cultural, educational, philosophic, and religious insights. Now, just to let you know, this book was originally written in 2009, but I think these authors might be a little bit older in heart. Yes? So when we say religious, think spiritual. For a more modern take on what we're reading. Okay? So, religious insights. They are less self-centered than they might be because they are genuinely interested in including the good of the greater social order into their personal sphere of activity. Yes? So, the Sagittarian keyed Aries person is more concerned about the people around them and society as a whole. And that society could be family, it could be their working environment, their company, it could be their community, whatever they will engage with and who they will participate with. It could be larger societies, it could be larger movements even. These expansive actions are often motivated by a desire for greater personal prestige, so these natives must guard against the possibility of showing narrow-minded, self-righteous, fanatical zeal on behalf of their own cultural values and religious beliefs, or also spiritual beliefs, yes? So, there is that quality of the potential zealot as the downside of this Decan of Aries. So we want to be careful of that. Otherwise, if we don't get, I'm right and everybody else is wrong, if we don't slip into that, but I understand something and my understanding will be of service to other people, is very, very beneficial. Whether it's spiritual, religious, philosophical, ethical, educational, any of that. Yes? And from the other book that I will have a link to in the description box below, called, this is the Decanics and Duads. The other book is just called The Decanics. And from that, I'm pulling one need. Yeah, that book has a wonderful organizational structure in which at the end of each one of the decans, the author creates a need. So the need for this decan is to use the energy for teaching and directing others in a religious setting, or one that involves the higher mind. So religious, spiritual, higher mind, those are all important in directing and teaching for natives to this Decan. Yeah? So, using energy to teach and direct in spiritual, religious, educational, higher-minded areas of our lives. Does that make sense? So, wonder what's going to happen in this Decan. So, friends, let's move on to the tarot card. Okay? So, I will show you the tarot card we're focusing on, and let's talk about that one. Here it is. So, the card for this Decan is here, yes? And it is the Three of Wands. We're finally in the Three of Wands. And remember, this is still Aries. It's the third Decan, which is keyed to Sagittarius, which is ruled by Jupiter. So we have Jupiter in Aries, and we have the mutable aspect of cardinal fire's vital attributes entering the world in this Decan, in this period of about 10 days, yes? And I forgot to write the dates of this, but they will be in the description box below. Okay? So, we got the Three of Wands. The guy standing on the hill, holding on to one of three wands, which are firmly planted in the ground, but we see the ships going off in the distance, right? So, the actions have been set into motion. Yeah, we've set our ships out into the world, or they could be returning. Some people see it the other way. But what does this mean when we think of this card astrologically? So, for me, upright, I would give a brief keyword of planned expansion. Now, the planning happened in the previous Decan, so now our planned expansion, we're expanding into the world. We're culturally ambitious, and our ambitions are geared, again, more towards the educational, the spiritual, religious, whatever you would describe yourself as. For me, I am both spiritual and religious. I was born into, I should say, a Roman Catholic family and was baptized before I could do much of anything. I was a baby baptism. And I grew up in the Roman Catholic Church, and I studied my master's degree in the Roman Catholic tradition. So I'm very, very strongly Roman Catholic as a human being, yes? But I'm also, as many Roman Catholics are, also personally a spiritual person. Now, there are some Roman Catholics who are not so much. They're more in line with rules and orders and following what other people say. But a lot of the Roman Catholics that I know are also very personally spiritual. They have spiritual practices. There are private devotions that people make. There are extra liturgical, which means outside of the church ritual, extra liturgical rituals and actions and performances that people engage in individually or in groups or out in the streets. Yes? So there's a rich, not only, I'm speaking globally. Yeah? So like in the Latin countries, and which, when I talk Latin countries, I'm actually speaking of the broadly Latin world, including all of the countries that use the Romance languages, yes? Influenced by the Latin churches. Now, the United States is also very strongly Protestant, and I studied some of that, but I am not deeply enmeshed within a Protestant milieu, although I am influenced by it because if you know anything about Roman Catholics around the world, United States Roman Catholics are very different from Italian Roman Catholics and, for example, Venezuelan Roman Catholics, yes? We're very strongly influenced by the Protestant atmosphere of the United States. So we've got this somewhat Protestant flavor to the Roman Catholic Church in the United States as well, which is a little bit odd and a little bit uncomfortable, especially for Rome. But now we've got a United States-born Pope in the Rome, so, okay, tangent. So that's an entirely different thing. But see, this is Three of Wands kind of stuff, where I'm talking this broad philosophical, let me show you what I know about philosophy and religion and how things are broadly. Do you understand? Okay, so I got swept up in the Three of Wands there for a second, I think. Where were we? Okay, so we can adapt ourselves to effective action in diverse circumstances. Yeah? There is that shooting ourselves out into the dark, yeah, charging into the unknown aspect of Sagittarius, yes, but we can also adapt ourselves to whatever we happen to run into as we charge our horses through this dark, dense forest of the unknown. Yes? And that's why we're, with the blessing of Jupiter, we're able to navigate these problems that can spring up as we dive into the unknown. We're interested in the good of life. The good of the greater and social order. Yeah, we want everybody to improve. We want society to grow, to expand. To expand, but to improve. On the opposite end, yeah, when we fall into the shadow end of this decan, and this card, see how those wands sticking there create a somewhat narrow door? Yeah? I mean, this card could have been backed up and those wands could be much more widely spaced if Pamela Coleman Smith had wanted to do that, but they're not. We're closed in, right? That door is kind of narrow, and that's or could be a reminder of the potential for narrow-mindedness, yeah? Self-righteousness, fanatical zeal. But let's move back into the upright position of this card. A question I might ask is, how can this energy be expressed outwardly? Yeah, so we had the impulse from the ace. It grew and developed under the light of the sun in the two. And here with Jupiter, we're moving forward. So how can this energy be expressed outwardly? Yes? It's directing it. Being aware of how and where we're directing that energy out into the world. Now, no, okay, so I'm not going to do that. Okay, moving forward. Because this is the third decan, we have an exaltation. Okay, I am going to do it. I didn't mention in the second decan video, where we had the sun in Aries. Well, the sun is actually exalted in Aries. And I don't think I mentioned that for the second decan. Yeah? The sun, it was given the honors of a VIP guest here in the Aries sign, yeah? Now we're moving into the third decan, and all third decans are going to be pointing to the exaltation of the ruling planet of that sign. So we have Mars in its exaltation, which is Mars in, believe it or not, Capricorn. Go figure. Just a side note, speaking of exaltations, the day before yesterday, I left my phone at school and I went off to work at the library. I have 2 jobs plus this. And when I got to the library, I realized I didn't have my phone, my device, and I had planned to use that device to do some work as I worked there at the circulation desk of the library. And so when I got there, I was really unhappy, to say the least. Yes, my leonine ego was deeply damaged. And so, as I was sitting there doing my grump, fucking grump, then I thought, what am I going to do? What I had planned to do was go through the exaltations of the planets and try and make sure that I was associating them correctly for the rest of this Decan walk. Because I'd remembered that I had forgotten to mention the exaltation of the sun in Aries in the last video. So I was sitting there thinking, now what am I going to do? I thought, okay, so let me see. Let me just try and do this from memory. Let me see if I can chart this out for myself. And so I sat there, I drew the circle of the zodiac, and I separated it out into the 12 signs, and there are some that I'm really, really certain about, yeah? I'm certain about the sun in Aries now. I'm certain about things like Saturn in Libra and Jupiter in Cancer. So I went through and I did the ones that I was certain about, and then I thought, okay, so where's Venus? Where is Mars? Oh, Mars I know, that's in Capricorn. I had that memorized. The two that I was the most shaky about were the Moon and Venus, but I thought, okay, where should they be? Where do I remember them having to be? And I placed them on the chart, and I thought, okay, when I get home, I'll check. And I was right. So, and then I was able to work, if that's where the exaltation is, the opposite sign is the fall, so I had them all charted out for myself. So, yeah, that was the Two of Wands, planning things out, charting things out action, right? Now here we are in the Three of Wands that's moving forward and putting those plans into action in the world. And so now we have Mars in Capricorn as an exaltation. What does that mean? Well, our vision becomes strategy. Action gains structure. First Decan of Aries, I want to do this, I want to do that, I want to do that. Second Decan is, okay, wait a second, I can't do everything. Let's focus on the things we are really going to do, right? Now, the threes, okay, we've got structure to our action. And we have authority. But that authority comes through discipline. The discipline of Capricorn. Remember, we got Mars in Capricorn. Capricorn brings the discipline. Mars brings the action. Brings the authority. Expansion with purpose. Yeah? And long-range ambitions. The Mars is ambitious, but Capricorn is ambitious, right? So we have those ambitions now have a long range going forward. So all of those things are part of this Three of Wands card. And can you see how those are possible as an extra layer, as a third and fourth layer of information to draw from when we're reading with this card? I hope you do. I hope you do, because I think this does match very nicely for the Three of Wands. And I know some people say, no, this is the Four of Wands Decan, but for me, this is the Three of Wands. And I think for me, it matches much better. For me. Just saying. Okay, so what do you think? Let us know in the comments below. Friends, now we're going to move on to the Kabbalistic associations and the major arcana cards that are going to inform this Three of Wands for us. Okay? So friends, here they are. So friends, you see, we have, I know you're probably might be a little bit weirded out by what you're seeing if you are strongly entrenched in the Golden Dawn system. But we have, from left to right, we have the Hierophant, which is keyed to Aries now. Remember, that's why we've got the Hierophant for the first 3 videos of Aries, right? Three of Wands is for this Decan of Aries. And then the Empress is for Jupiter. And I hear you all cringing and saying, "No, the Empress is Venus. Look, right there. She's got Venus on her shield." Okay. Okay, yes, but this is the third card. This is number 3. Yes? The third letter of the Hebrew alphabet is Gimel. Aleph, Bet, Gimel. My pronunciation is probably horrible, but you should be able to understand which letter I'm talking about. I'm starting to be able to read these letters a little bit without having to look them back up, you know? Okay, so that's something. Let's get improving. But this is Gimel. Gimel is associated with, in the older version that I believe is the older version of the Sefer Yetzirath, is associated with the planet Jupiter. And this association is probably going to freak you out even more when we get to the second letter of the Hebrew alphabet with the High Priestess and Beth. But, okay, so stay tuned. But so this is Gimel. Gimel is associated with Jupiter in that recension of the Sefer Yetzirath. But Jupiter, I think, works really well for the Empress. Yes, Jupiter is a boy, the Empress is a girl, but that's not what we're talking about here. Yes, she has Venus on her shield, but that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about the qualities of the planet. Yes? So, we'll get to that in just a moment. But first, let's remember the Hierophant is here too, right? What is the Hierophant? The Hierophant is Aries, which is ruled by Mars. So we do have cardinal fire entering this card being the 3 of Wands, in this decan. Yes? So we have cardinal fire here still in this third decan where we have the mutable aspect of cardinal fire. And the Hierophant is associated also with the Hebrew letter He, which is window and the breath of life, right? It's the feminine aspect. Yes, he is the feminine aspect of the divine tetragram. And also the neuter aspect. Yeah, there are 2 He's. Yod, He, Vav, He. Yod is the masculine, the first masculine principle of the energy entering into creation. He is the first feminine principle of receiving the energy and opening up to development. Yod He Vav. Vav is the second masculine principle of things moving forward, of action, maybe air. The last He is often considered a neutral He, neither masculine nor feminine. There are different schools of thought, but okay, so which He is this Hierophant? Well, you could think of the Hierophant as maybe the neutral He or the feminine He. Your choice. So it's the taking and giving of self with the Hierophant. Revelation. Yeah. Associating that card also to the that's the Hierophant. So it's the 5th runic letter, which is Raido, which is a new way of life and a new perspective. But it's also rhythms. It's cycles. It's reconciliation. You can see reconciliation in the Hierophant card as well. The 2 acolytes and the Hierophant up behind you could think of it very negatively as being the judge of those 2 acolytes or the controller of those 2 acolytes. But we could think more generously of that Hierophant character as the mediator and the reconciler of those 2 acolytes, and being the one who is able to facilitate communication between those 2 acolytes. Yes, and so the Hierophant is things like leadership qualities and unity and kindness and generosity. It's also sacrifice of self and the redemption of sacrifice, informing the 3 of Wands. So that remember the Three of Wands, we have higher aspirations, religious, philosophical, social, right? So we're also able to sacrifice ourselves for the greater good through the Hierophant. We're able to be more able to facilitate reconciliation, facilitate communication through the Hierophant. Be leaders, the Sagittarian leaders through the Hierophant as well. Yes? And the fire of the altar of sacrifice, which is indicated in the Aries card, the sacrificial lamb. That is still that fire of the fire element of the fire signs of, what are they? Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius. So all of that is informing the Three of Wands still, as it is Aries. Now, what about the Empress? Right? She is... Okay, now... I'm sorry. I'm going to slide off camera and slide back on, okay? Don't freak out. I'm sliding off camera. I'm sliding back on camera because I wanted to get my Tree of Life, and here is your Tree of Life up here. Okay? So, yes. So, in this Tree of Life, you can see that the Hierophant connects Keter and Hokmah. So we have the connection of the divine energy coming in through the world and coming down into the Sephirah of Hokmah, which is wisdom. So the divine energy, divine light pours into wisdom, right? And that is on the path of the Hierophant. So we have wisdom pouring in, but we also have the wisdom to reach back up to the divine, right? The Three of Wands is associated with Binah, right? Because the Tree of Life at the top, number 1 is Keter, number 2 is Hokmah, and then, I'm sorry, for you it would, let's see, okay, so just a second. So this is your left. So it would be Keter, Hokmah would be over here for you, yes, number 2, and then 3, Binah, would be over here. So threes, all the threes are associated with Binah, which is what? It's understanding. Because the Tree of Life moves from divine energy pouring in to wisdom to understanding. The energy of wisdom pours into a kind of a holding space, yeah? When we think of the Tree of Life and the energy of the divine coming in, the energy of the divine from the monad, from the undifferentiated, comes in, and it is still undifferentiated in Hokmah, Keter Hokmah, in Hokmah. It's undifferentiated wisdom. And that energy, that wisdom moves into Binah, into a kind of containing space. We get to start the beginnings of form. Yeah? The wisdom starts to differentiate into understanding in the three. So we do have that quality of the Three of Wands as well. Understanding begins here. Does that make sense? And so the Empress, you can see in this card, this Tree of Life chart, the Empress has 2 spots. Yeah? Jupiter is in the 1, 2, 3, 4, the 4th Sephirah of Chesed, because of Jupiter. So the Empress is in Chesed for Jupiter, which is what? It's loving kindness. It's the open heart. It's perfect for the Empress, right? But the Empress isn't all just love and kindness to me. Mother Nature isn't all just love and kindness and bounty. There is a severe side to Mother Nature as well, right? There is the aspect of cutting things off. There is death. There is severity to nature as well. And that is pointed towards in this Tree of Life by, you see the path of the Empress, not the Sephirah of Jupiter, which the Empress is associated with, but the path of the Empress coming from Binah down to Gevra. And Gevra is the Sephira of severity. So we have understanding linked with severity. Yes, our understanding is linked to our ability to make decisions. This is good, this is bad. This we keep, this we cut away. We make the borders, we make the boundaries, yes? Does that make sense? And it is a Martian, you see that, yes? Gevra is a Martian Sephira. So it connects Saturn and Gevra. Both of them are the malefics, yeah? And I keep wanting to call them maleficents, but they're the malefics of the planets. The big malefic and the little malefic means that they're the harsh ones. It doesn't mean they're the bad ones. They're the, ooh, mean, bad, blah, but they're the harsh ones, the ones that are aggressive, bordered, rules, regulations, instead of the beneficent, which are, yes, love and light and joy and peace and expansion and abundance. They are organization, they are rules, they are boundaries, and we want both of those, right? So, the Empress is on the mother pillar. This shocked my mentees last night, that the mother pillar is the harsh one, the father pillar is the merciful one, which seems weird to a lot of Western-minded people. Yes? But that's the way it blows, the way it flows. And maybe it does blow. But, so yes, the Empress on the mother pillar, good for the Empress, right, is also the harsh one. It's the regulator one. It's the one that connects both rules and regulations to understanding in both directions. So the Empress is, yes, connected with Gimel, which is associated with the camel. And if you look at the Thoth deck, I think there might be a camel on her, or is the camel on the High Priestess? Now I'm confused. You tell me. Go look at your Thoth deck. Tell me where the camel is. Is it on the High Priestess or is it on the Empress? Anyway, so Gimel is associated with the camel. And also rope. You can think of the rope to rein in your camel, right? It's the benefactor walking towards the next letter, Daleth. Daleth is the weak, which is what the emperor is associated with, by the way. So she is the one who walks towards the weak Daleth with generosity. That is also Gimel. Yeah? To nourish the weak until they are completely ripe, you could say. Yeah, so there's the nourishment until ripe aspect of the Empress, which is here in Gimel. There's generosity and there's kindness to that letter Gimel. Now, we also have the rune. Third rune is Thurizaz of the Elder Futhark. Yeah? Fehu, Uruz, Thuriaz. Thurizaz, which kind of looks like a line with a bump. It looks maybe like a hammer to some people. And it's the hammer, Thor's hammer for some people. It's also the thorn on a rose, for example. So there's power in Thurizaz. There's protection. There's defensiveness. Think of the powerful mother who's going to protect her children. Yeah? That could be Thurizaz as well with the Empress. Overcoming obstacles as well. Jupiter likes to overcome obstacles. Now, Saturn likes to put up the walls, but Jupiter likes to overcome them. Yes? So, for the Empress, we also have the ideas of justice and righteousness, benevolence and expansion. All of those things can inform the Three of Wands. And they do, I think, through Jupiter, very well inform the Three of Wands, of the Sagittarian aspect of Aries. And because, again, it's chesed for the Empress, yeah, which is on the father pillar. Chesed is boundlessness and expansion, the outpouring of divine love and grace. All of that sounds really good for the Empress, doesn't it? Doesn't the Jupiter association now make sense to you for the Empress? Empress, yes, that's correct. Doesn't it? And do you see how that can inform the Sagittarian qualities of the third decan of Aries? I think those things work really, really well together. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. Do you see a new way of approaching the Empress instead of the pregnant lady on the chair with the Venus shield? And I'm not saying that that's wrong, and I'm not saying that people who focus in on those things that are very clearly on this card are wrong, or to move towards the Persephone aspect of with the pomegranates on the robe of the Empress, yeah? Or the wheat, that abundance, yes? All of that is really, really good, but those do not, I don't think, deny the possibility of Jupiter as well. And remembering that Jupiter and Venus are both the benefics, right? And I keep wanting to say beneficence, the benefics of the planets. Jupiter is the big beneficent, but the big benefic, and I said it, the big benefic, and Venus is the little benefic. So we just expanded the little benefic Venus into the big one of Jupiter with the Empress. Okay? Okay. So, friends, are you ready? I have pulled out a spread from these three cards. What did I go with? Well, for the Hierophant, the direction I decided to go with, the question I pulled was, what is pouring in from the divine? Yeah? What is pouring in from the divine? No more to say than that for the Hierophant. For the Three of Wands, I decided, what direction can we go in? And for the Empress, considering the Sagittarian aspect that we're looking at, the boldness, I decided to formulate the question as, what bold expansion is possible? Yes, what bold expansion is possible? So, the three questions, once more. What is pouring in from the divine through the Hierophant? Second, what direction can we go in through the Three of Wands? And what bold expansion is possible through the Empress? Does that make sense? So, friends, I will show you the cards that I got pulled from the Light Seers Tarot, and if you want to get the Light Seers Tarot or this Tarot that I'm using for this series, I will have links in the comments in the description section below, as well as for that Oracle deck that we showed at the beginning of this video. Okay, so friends, let me show you the responses to those questions right now. Friends, what you just saw was the three Rider-Waite-Smith cards on the top, and then below them were the three cards from the Light Seers Tarot, which are in response to those three questions that I told you about. And let me just quickly say them again. What is from left to right? What is pouring in from the divine? What direction can we go in? And what bold expansion is possible? Yes, and you saw from left to right, we got, and I'll have them here as well, the Hanged Man. If you know me, you know I identify with that card. Then the Eight of Wands, which is interesting, having come right below the Three of Wands in that spread. And then for the Empress, we've got the World, right? The World. Yay! I mean, that just made me, that tickled me, that made me, that titillated my sense of possibilities that it really excited me in a way. So, and why? Because in the world, we can kind of see that Empress having gotten up from her seat and wow, look at what, yeah? Okay, so on this side, I'm also going to show you a new image of the Tree of Life. And that image of the Tree of Life will include the cards that we pulled for these questions, right? So you see that there's a small section in the lower part of the tree that is now lit up in yellow for you. And that section is lit up in yellow because of the 3 cards that we got answering those questions. Yes? So where am I going to put this? I want to have access to all of this information so as we read this spread together. Okay, are you ready? So let's start with question 1. Let's just move left to right instead. So what we had was the Hanged Man. And you see in this card, the woman upside down. There's an acrobatic skill that you see sometimes of people doing aerial dances, keeping themselves up in the air with cloth. Have you seen what I'm trying to talk about, what I'm trying to describe before? So that's what she reminds me of. I don't really think of this as a sling so much as it makes me think of an aerial performer turning upside down and reaching down into a swirling pool of what? Of runes, right? You see the runes down there below. So there's a very Elder Futhark aspect to the art in this card for me. She reminds me of Odin. Yeah, Odin did that, put himself up on the tree upside down and was able to receive the runes. And so she is an expression perhaps of even Odin. Yeah? So, okay. Question was, what is pouring in from the divine? And what we get here is, I think, we have divine wisdom pouring in. Remember, the Hierophant linked the divine into the wisdom pouring in, undifferentiated wisdom. And you can see in the card, we've got that the knowledge coming in from the attitude of turning yourself upside down. Now, for me, the Hanged Man is associated with Libra. Okay, Libra. Okay. Don't get freaked out. It's associated with Libra for me, because it is associated with the Hebrew letter Lamed. Excuse me. On the tree of, I told you at the beginning of the video, my voice and maybe allergies. Well, things are moving in here right now. The Hanged Man you can see on the Tree of Life connects Hod and Yesod. Yes, you can see that? And that means the path from Hod to Yesod is the path I call Hod surrender. Other people call it other things. For me, it's surrender. The Sephirah before Hod is Netzach, and Netzach is commonly known as victory. Yeah? For me, that moves into the surrender. So Netzach is the victory over problems. Hod is the surrender to the problem, not in giving up, but in being able to move around and through it by surrendering to what is. Does that make sense? It's not surrender as in I give up, I'm not going to do anything, come take me, but rather it's the surrender of not fighting against anymore, but being able to be like water, being able to move around and through things by surrendering to what is rather than fighting against it. That to me is what Hod is. So that links to Yesod, which is the foundation. So we surrender to what is, and we're able to connect to our foundation before we manifest in Malkut. Yes? That's where the Hanged Man lands for me. And because it is Lamed, it is associated again with Libra, which is ruled by Venus. So for those of you who were unhappy with not having Venus in this spread yet, we got Venus now, and she's sitting right beneath Mars, yes? Or above Mars, depending on where you want to put those sets of 3 cards, right? She's right either above the Hierophant or below the Hierophant, doesn't really matter. But Venus has now appeared with the Hierophant in Aries with this card. And we have cardinal heirs vital attributes entering our spread of 3 cards. So Lamed is what? Lamed is an ox goad. Yeah, it's that stick you use to get your ox to move forward, but it's also a teaching staff. A teacher has a staff or a pointer in more modern times to teach, as a tool to point to things, yes? It's also the action of learning and teaching. Those are associated with Lamed, which is great, I think, for the Hanged Man, yes? Aspirations. The heart striving upward. And the way to more effectively effectuate that, does that make sense? I think it does. Effectively effectuate that is by turning yourself upside down, getting a new perspective, and then the heart can go up or up, whichever direction is up for you when you're upside down. Yes? The positive trait for this position of Libra and Lamed is harmonious relationships, balance, and openness, which you would want if you're hanging upside down, right? You don't want to be in a precarious position when you're hanging upside down. If you can be upside down in a harmonious relationship with who you are, where you are, and with other people, that would be much more beneficial. If you have balance when hanging upside down, that would be really beneficial. And if you're open to a new perspective, right? So this is the more esoteric view of the Hanged Man rather than the betrayer or the punished one, right? Now, because we have the 12th card and the 12th Hebrew letter, we've also got a 12th rune in the Elder Futhark, which is Jera. And Jera looks kind of like this, yeah? Looks like 2 linking greater than, less than signs a little bit. And Jera is the rune for harvest, for rewards, for harmony, again, harmony, yeah? For abundance, which is nice to enter the spread at this point, and echoing Jupiter with the Empress, if you recall. And also cycles of life. So this card is also pointing to things such as God's perfect justice and the eternal moral law. Yes? All actions are measured against divine standards. And because all actions are measured against divine standards, our human deeds, whether they be good or bad, are often found wanting. Yes, they're not quite good enough in comparison to the divine, not in comparison to your mother, your father, your president, your best friend, your younger brother or sister, or your aunt, or the teacher at school. Yeah, that's not what we're talking about. Comparing to the divine, our actions as eternal natures as we are in these human bodies are going to be wanting, right? Because we do have egos, almost all of us, and even when they're functioning in a healthy way, they still trip up. Yeah, okay. So there's a need for divine grace in this card. or a means of atonement to balance the scales of justice. And then now we do have that echo of the Marseille hanged man, which is the atonement for things that were not quite as good as they could have been, or quite as good as the divine could do it, or quite as good as our eternal natures could do it outside of these bodies, right? As pure non-physical being. There's also the pursuit of equilibrium between the spiritual and the physical realms here, right? And that sounds good for the hanged man to me. The aspiration to connect the material world to the higher spiritual world. And those things do seem to be what is pouring in to the world now through the Sagittarius, what is it? The Decan of Aries, right? The connection of the divine and the physical world, the Sagittarian wanting to do that, the higher mind, right? And the willingness and ability to recognize the less than perfection of what we are capable of doing in the world and still reaching higher. Also, what is pouring into us right now are the teaching qualities, right, of Lamed. But we do also have the possibility of abundance and of perfect justice, of restored balance and openness, right? So even in that rush into the unknown and adventure and leaving things up to the good blessing fate of Jupiter, we can still allow ourselves to open. And that divine light pouring in can allow us to open. To receive the light and wisdom of the divine. Yes? As we move into our foundation on the Tree of Life. Now, let's look at what the next card is, which is interesting. It was right below the Three of Wands. We had the Eight of Wands, right? Which is also interesting to me because why? So the question is, what direction can we go in? And we can see, well, whatever direction we choose, we're going to be going with a lot of energy, right? You can see those wands shooting into the bright light of the future, to me. Maybe even the divine, with direction and purpose. Yeah, they're all moving in towards this center. Maybe we could be going in the direction of the divine. And the Eight of Wands, to me, is the second decan of Sagittarius. Right? Which is keyed to Aries. So the card above it was the third decan of Aries keyed to Sagittarius. This card is the second decan of Sagittarius keyed to Aries. So we have Mars entering Sagittarius through this card. So the Three of Wands is the mutable aspect of cardinal fire. The Eight of Wands is the cardinal aspect of mutable fire. And you see the cardinal aspect, the moving forward, pointing towards stuff of mutable fire, is echoed in the image of those cards being very cardinally directed. Does that make sense? In the Eight of Wands? So for me, that card being a wonderful echo of like the flip side of the Three of Wands, it's targeted movement. Yeah, the Three of Wands was planned expansion. Now we have targeted movement. So what direction can we go in? Well, it's whatever direction we target, right? And it's adventurous. It is like travel for experience. And all of that color radiating is beautiful in this card, I think. Now, I didn't put it on, oh, maybe, okay, so I need to do this over. And so in your card, you'll also, in your, I'm sorry, your Tree of Life, I just realized this. I should have colored in the 8th Sephirah, which is what? Kether, I'm going to go through them in order. Kether, Hokmah, Binah, Chesed, Gevurah, Tipreth, Netzach. Number 8 is Hod. So, this card lights up Hod. Remember, the Hanged Man connects Hod to Yesod, right? Hod and Yesod. I need to fix that picture for us. So that's interesting. So that means that the 8 of Wands is also pointing towards our surrender to what is as we direct ourselves. Right? We're not directing ourselves towards the thing we want to destroy, towards the problem. We're directing ourselves past the problem, if there are any, and we surrender to what is as we direct ourselves forward. Does that make sense? I'm sorry. Okay, so we have what? Again, optimism. Yeah? Drive, initiative, self-confidence are all here. What direction can we go in? Well, I'm sorry, I'm still getting the whatever we choose, we do it with optimism, drive, initiative, self-confidence, surrendering to what is. We have ideals to our ideals are put into practical action. And we can remember the abstract and forget the ordinary. Now, the Sagittarians like the abstract, like the philosophical, like the spiritual, like the religious, and the practical, the ordinary is like, yeah? So, exploration. 8 of Wands, exploration. Maybe foolhardy, but generous. And prophetic a little bit, and independent. They love anything that goes fast. And upright, when this card is upright, the question I might ask is, what focused action is required now? That's the direction we want to go in. So this card actually isn't really answering what direction we want to go in, but rather how we're going to go in that direction, I believe. Now, again, we have Jupiter here, because the Jupiter is the ruler of Sagittarius. The second decan of Jupiter points towards a complement. So Jupiter in Virgo is the complement. So what does that mean? Our vision becomes actionable. Now, some organization is possible now. We move with precision. Our messages land accurately. Because, remember, Virgo is ruled by Mercury, so there's the ability to communicate well there as well. Our progress moves through and forward with adjustment. We're able to make the adjustments. It's not like we shoot our arrow and if we better hope we aimed it correctly because it's just going to keep going in that same direction, right? With Sagittarius, we're able to make some adjustments here, being the second decanate, being the complement of Jupiter in Virgo. We're able to make some adjustments as we move forward. So all of those things are possible with this 8 of Wands. And again, it doesn't seem to be telling us where to go, but how to go. And then we move into what bold expansion is possible with the world. And this world card is beautiful. We see that she's there. She's got a rainbow on. She's dressed in a rainbow, right? And she's open to the universe. And we see the platonic solids around her instead of the four animals of the eagle for Scorpio, the angel for Aquarius, the lion for Leo, and the bull for Taurus, or for the four evangelists of the gospel, whatever you want to see them as, the four winds. We got four platonic solids, which is cool, definitely cool. And what is the world? So for me, the world is associated with the Hebrew letter Tav, the last Hebrew letter. And because it's Tav, it is associated with the moon. And so you can see here with Yesod, Yesod is the Sephirah for the moon. So we have the world in Yesod. And remember, so the hanged man connects Hod and Yesod. The world is in Yesod. But the world, again, is Tav, and Tav connects Yesod to Malkut, which is the kingdom, its manifestation. Which seems absolutely appropriate for the world card, right? So what bold expansion is possible? Well, the world is possible. I guess you could say that right off the bat. Yeah, everything is possible. The universe is possible. We can expand from, do you see the seed of life behind the woman in the world card? It's very light, it's in white behind her. Yeah? So we can emerge from the seed of life to infinite possibilities. Now again, the world associated to Tav gives us what? It's the image of a cross or a mark. The X marks the spot. Also a sign, just generally as a sign, like a sign from God, a sign. It's humankind's ultimate destination, Tav. But it's not only a destination, it's completion as the portal for beginning a new cycle. Yeah, it's the door to beginning the new thing. It's the door back into the first letter of Aleph with the magician, for me, hopefully for us. It's the truth. It is covenant. Yeah, the agreement between us and our higher nature and the divine. And it's fulfillment. It's also the fulfillment of that covenant. So it's all of that stuff. It's the fulfillment, it's completion, it's the promise, it's the portal back into a new cycle. It's the ultimate destination, but the destination is not the end, it's the beginning. All of the world qualities, right? And now the rune that would be associated with this would be the rune of Ingwaz, which is the earth god, the great god Ing, which is fertility and growth, but also retreat. So there's that both ends of the spectrum aspect of Ingwaz, which is very similar to both ends of the spectrum of the world card, right? The end and the beginning, the portal of the beginning. Now, the Jewish people, to my knowledge, for this letter, for the moon, I should say, point towards the feminine principle and renewal. Renewal of, think of the cycles of the moon, right? So, we can think of the Shekinah, the feminine divine, creative divine aspect, the divine feminine presence in the world, the immanent, the indwelling, and often in feminized presence of God here in the world, as God creates the physical universe from the God's self as the God's feminine aspect. the Shekinah. So, an interesting thing is that we can see perhaps that the devil card is the Shekinah, not exactly trapped like a prisoner, but trapped as in asleep in the dream of physical world. And here it's the Shekinah released, if that makes sense. It reflects the light of the divine emanating from the world. And also change and emotional sensitivity of the moon, right? Now, I don't know if you noticed this, but an interesting balance of the world card being number 21 and the hanged man being number 12. 1, 2, 2, 1. That seems to be a nice balance, right? They are mirroring each other. So what bold expansion is possible? Everything is possible. The divine is possible to reveal itself, to shine forth from us, from the world, in this Decan of Aries. Yes? We're moving towards a completion of the Aries zodiacal sign, of course, but we're at a completion of and a portal into a new cycle that is full of truth and covenant and fulfillment, and a completion of one thing before beginning the next of Taurus, perhaps. But we're moving towards this, both the emanation of the divine presence here in the physical world and a completion of perhaps what we have started in the Three of Wands. So we were able to perhaps start and move towards a completion, or at least one step of completion of what we are moving towards with the Eight of Wands. As the divine light has poured into the world with the movement of the Hierophant of Kether into Chokmah, now in the world, the divine is now ready to shine forth from the manifested reality. Here in Sagittarius, and all of those big concepts are things that really light up a Sagittarian. Yes? Here in the third Decan of Aries. So, what's going to happen in this coming period of 9 to 10 days? Could be really interesting, could be exciting. And hopefully we don't fall into the negative aspect of Sagittarius, of the zealot, the narrow-minded, self-righteous one. That would be the negative pole of the Sagittarian aspect of Aries. We want to avoid that at all costs, I believe. That would be very detrimental to us, personally and as a collective. Does that make sense? Let's see what happens. Let us know what you think. I'd love to hear from you. And friends, now, as always, I wish you love, joy, well-being, and pure awareness. Thank you.